Happy Monday. Happy MS Awareness Week. My apologies for the technical delays. For those of you that have been trying to join me for the last 10 minutes, technology is great when it all syncs together. I give the folks at Life Pro huge kudos. There's a number of moving parts behind the scenes before I show up here, not just on Facebook or Amazon or YouTube, wherever you may be seeing me. Um, but here I am. I apologize for being tardy. It is MS Awareness Week, and many of you out there are dealing with MS. There's been a number of different ways that people living with MS manage their symptoms. I've done a couple of sessions before on this in the past, and I can't speak enough to all the MS warriors out there. This week is about awareness. The US and Canada have MS Awareness Week. Later on in the year is MS Awareness Month. So we'll be doing some more recognition on that as well later on. But today is very much, hello, Kim from Campbell River. Today is very much about talking about symptoms, self-care. Just because you have a diagnosis or suspect that you may be dealing with something does not mean there are not things that you can do for your self-care to improve your situation. I'm dealing with a bit of a scratchy voice. I had an open house. Matt talking. I did want to give you a few things just to think about, whether you're dealing with a diagnosis or perhaps care or have a relationship with someone that has MS. Perhaps MS is one of many conditions that you have. Like I always talk about in my sessions, there are labels, there is the diagnosis, but many of you are not in a situation where you have a diagnosis, but you know something is not right. So I always like to talk about symptoms. Symptoms can be universal between conditions. And a lot of the ways that I like to use the tools from Life Pro are more about managing symptoms and symptom relief, which can be universal, as I said, regardless of condition. But specifically this week, to bring some awareness to MS, there's all kinds of events going on around the country. There is a new blog up on Life Pro's blog today, if you want to check that out. And there are past blogs as well. So anytime you're ever looking for information, if you do have MS personally and you want to see what information might be available through Life Pro on a certain topic, on their site, there's a little search field up on the top right hand corner, and you can just search MS or MS awareness or multiple sclerosis, and you'll see some different information come up. Past blog articles are there. Today's blog article will come up just in the regular blog, but if you're looking for something older, there are also, of course, on Facebook and YouTube, MS specific things that we've talked about. I posted in the event on the VIP group today a workout I did last fall during MS Awareness Month, dedicated to Dr. Terry Walls and some of the amazing work that she is doing through the University of Iowa. She is a very valued partner of Life Pro, and I'm always very pleased at any opportunity we have to collaborate with her and tap into her wisdom. So today for MS Awareness Day, if you are here, please let me know where you're joining me from. If you do have MS, how you manage it now. Maybe you don't have MS, but you suspect something may be going on. Perhaps some of the symptoms I'm going to go through here before we get into some tips will help you better identify what you may or may not be seeking as a diagnosis. And the internet, of course, is an amazing tool to look into some of this stuff. MS, what is it? It's an autoimmune disorder that affects the brain and the spinal cord. Many people that suffer with MS end up feeling, if I were to put one general symptom, is fatigue, tired, you lack energy, or you lack stamina. You have difficulty getting around, and this sometimes contributes to a loss of muscle mass. Why? When you're less active, when you're not standing and bearing your weight, we tend to deteriorate, especially in later stages in our life. Symptoms, according to the National Health Institute, top of the list is fatigue. Vision problems can become a concern. Sensation issues, things like numbness, tingling, it might be neuropathy, but it's nerves and numbness and tingling, sometimes pain. Muscle spasms is a common one as well. Stiffness in the muscles or weakness in the muscles or just in general. You're going to start noticing things like mobility problems that can be due to lack of sensation, deterioration in the muscles, the balance. Pain is a common one for a lot of folks as well at any stage. MS also can be progressive, so those symptoms can progress and deteriorate as a body over time. Problems with thinking, cognitive, like learning, planning, foresight, things like that. And then, of course, when you're dealing with things like this, depression and anxiety tend to be common as well. So it is not a death sentence just because you have a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. There are things that you can do, but sometimes it's identifying, your own personal needs. You might have other goals. Just because you have MS doesn't mean you don't want to go to the gym or ride your bike or, go for a walk in the park. So, but understanding there are tools and, takes a little bit of discipline maybe. There's ways that you can manage your symptoms on an ongoing basis or as they flare up from time to time to ensure that you have a quality life, ensure that you have an active day. Dr. Terry Walls, as I mentioned earlier, is a huge example of how being proactive, not just with your activities, but your food, what you put into your body as far as nutrition and components to sustain the activities that you are trying to do is a really important relationship. So whether, we always think about food and diet when we're trying to lose weight, but food can be medicine. Food is medicine. And if you're not giving your body what it needs to sustain the activities that you are trying to do, any efforts are going to be short-lived on the physical side. Melissa, hello. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I don't have MS, but have a few massage clients with it and would love to learn how to help them or recommendations I can offer. Awesome, Melissa. Thank you for coming. I always, if you're just joining me, I always talk about symptoms. I have so many clients with MS. My experience comes with dealing with a lot of my clients. I see Kim saying, "Oh, boys, it is every medicine." Kim is a longtime customer and friend of mine, and she's another walking testimonial. She's a big keto fan, but sometimes eating for your body, not so much your condition. We've all got different blood types. Perhaps you've got food sensitivities. The best time you can spend, in my opinion, and I think Dr. Walls would back me up, in battling MS is looking at what you're putting into your system, what you're giving your body to support, the symptoms that you might be experiencing. Maybe it's just a food intolerance, you never know. So, and again, everyone is different, just like exercise or, going for self-care, you have personal preferences, you have personal tolerances, you have different experience, and sometimes words like exercise and working out is just intimidating if that's not who you are now, let alone when you have a condition on top of that. So back to symptoms just very briefly, fatigue being a very, very big one. And if you can give yourself some energy, some mental clarity, a lot of the other symptoms on the list, in my opinion, can be more manageable. So things like numbness and tingling, muscle spasms, stiffness, weakness, deteriorating muscles, the mood, all of this can be lifted through activity. It's assessing what activity is appropriate for you. Or maybe it's therapy. It's assessing what therapy or self-care tools are best for your needs and your tolerances. And as I said, we've all usually got other goals. So just because maybe you're initially looking at some of these tools today because you want more energy or you want to manage pain, there's usually other goals in life. Maybe, you're preparing for an event, or maybe you're going on a vacation and you just want to be able to walk longer distances than you normally would be. That's a really common one I get from my folks with MS, my fibro crowd as well. I'm going on a holiday and I just want to, I'm going to be walking a lot more. I'm going to be doing stairs, or I'm going to be doing hills. And a lot of these therapies, when you're looking at them, I always want you to think about what am I going to be treating? What am I using this thing to manage? And where am I most likely going to be using it? There's never going to be one tool that's perfect for every situation, every application. But sometimes when maybe you've decided that you want to get into some light therapy because of the benefits. Light therapy is probably one of the most all around, least invasive, hands-free ways that you can deal with some of these symptoms that you're experiencing. But you're probably not going to want to take a 4-foot panel on vacation with you. So there's sometimes, selecting a tool that's not only going to incorporate in managing your symptoms, but incorporating into your lifestyle. If you're a busy person and you're on the go, you may want to look at something that's got a more portable appeal to it, or something that's rechargeable. If you're going to be doing your therapies at home in your big recliner or your anti-gravity chair, and you're ending or beginning your day with them, you may want to look at something that can be set up on more of a stationary or a permanent basis. Sometimes investing in the biggest or the best or the cutest and the tiniest, that you've got to think about, what am I using it for? Where am I going to be using it? And the third one would be realistic. I talked about that a lot of my sessions this weekend. Who are you as a person? What's your track record at this point? Are you going to even use it? Sometimes when you select things, it's not what I think is best and what I stick with. I've got lots of different tools, but I've certainly got some faves that I gravitate to, not necessarily because the device is of better quality, or it has more lights, or it has better power. It's because it incorporates into what I know my disciplines are like. Things that are hands-free that I can do other things with while I'm using them is the biggest appeal to me. If I have to stop and make a big mental note, I'm not the most organized person when it comes to planning and writing things on pieces of paper, whereas some of you thrive in that environment, and that's how you identify issues. So, what you select in a device should be a personality thing too, and just be realistic with yourself. Is this something I'm going to actually use? If something else is more appealing and you see yourself using it more often or more regularly. The big thing I talk about with symptoms, I don't care what the condition is that you have, is consistent, regular use, not only to alleviate and short term get rid of some of this stuff, but in the long term as the maintenance piece. That's really where the rubber hits the road. I don't want you to stop using these therapies just because a symptom has gotten dramatically better or you personally feel better. You want to keep dealing with these, especially if you're dealing with MS, if you've got chronic conditions. You want to keep the maintenance piece going so that things don't return and you don't digress after you've put in all this time and effort. Okay, I need a slurp. One of my new Christmas presents to me was some new mugs. I have a little bit of a Kim Carnes, a raspy voice today with all my talking from the weekend. So we're going to switch gears. I want to get into some therapies, and I'm going to end with vibration plates today for a change. Normally I'm talking in the beginning about vibration plates, but there's just so many ways that you can affect and manage the symptoms. With MS, one of the best things that you can do from an exercise perspective are things like aerobic stretching, aerobic exercises, getting that heart rate elevated, stretching, and progressive strength training. I say progressive because depending on where you're starting, you're dealing with a diagnosis, perhaps you've got a different system you're dealing with. You don't want to push too hard, too fast. Aerobic exercise or strength training, resistance training, anything like that. Like I say, increasing the heart rate, walking, jogging, but you want to make sure you're doing it moderately. Don't go too hard, too fast, because you don't want to push and, exasperate or make your symptoms worse, especially the fatigue piece. The last thing you want to do is kill yourself in a workout and then have no energy left for the rest of the day. So the plates are a really good way to not only boost energy, but reduce the amount of time that you're spending exercising, which is one of the key things, not just for MS, but heart conditions, anybody that's experiencing fatigue. But before we get into activity, I want to talk just a little bit about managing symptoms. Hi, Deb. Thanks for joining us. Deb is joining us from Virginia. So the first couple of tools I want to talk about are light therapies. And I've got a couple I had set up here from the weekend. This is one of the bigger, badder devices that Life Pro offers. I love when I'm demoing this. I use the little handle on the back of my shoulder now. I'm learning it just sort of holds it. The reason this is substantial. This thing is steel. This would be a good example of what I would talk about as, it can be portable. There's very few of the light therapy devices until you get into some of the saunas that you couldn't physically take with you. But this is going to be a better example. Maybe you've got a workout station or you've got a little therapy area set up. Maybe you're doing this in your bedroom. This is going to be good for more of a larger surface area if you want. It can certainly target an area, but this is going to be better for more of a, maybe you're treating the legs. One of the big things with MS, the pain is those restless legs, weakness in the legs, tightness in the legs. You also see MS and fibro. There's a lot of sometimes misdiagnosis and overlap. So if you find me tripping over my tongue, it's because they can be very similar in the symptoms they present. So what I like about the panel, because I like doing the least amount of time to get things done because I have very little time. I like setting up the panel while I'm doing my vibration plate exercises. I have raging varicose veins. And I'm using this to target not only those, but just my bad knee and my feet. I'm 50 these days and I do not have MS, but as we age, things change. So I love using the panel. It kind of casts on one side of my body and then I turn around and do my exercises the other way. So I'm kind of getting total body. You can also set this up in front of you. I do recommend if you're using any of Life Pro's visual therapies, regardless of what symptoms you're using it to manage, make sure you wear protective eyewear with these or anyone, don't stare at it. Although we have a tendency to do that. It's just, I don't know, it's like a human thing. You're driving down the road and you look at the headlights. You're not supposed to because you're going to get those white spots, but we do it. So make sure that you wear protective eyewear. The reason I like putting it beside me is I don't like wearing the eyewear. So just don't be looking at it. This is not in my line of vision when it's beside me. I also, when I get like low back pain, or sometimes if I start working out again and I break out a little bit of my back, it's pimples. When I start detoxing, I get it down the back under the bra. This is nice to set up behind you. So get into like a little tube top or something where you can get more skin exposed, a little pair of shorts, and this can just cast behind you. The opposite, then, work it out. Maybe you're bedridden and you have no mobility and you're agonizing in pain. You can set this right beside you on the nightstand, maybe on a side table beside you on the couch. It's just a really good way to get the therapy without you physically having to hang on to it. This is what I would refer to as a lower intensity light treatment. I'm introducing my own terms in the world these days. This would be a version of a high intensity treatment. For any of you that have followed me, hello, Donna. Can anybody tell me the difference between what Debby refers to as a high intensity and a low intensity light therapy treatment? I'm going to give you a minute to answer that one. I'm going to go over this a little bit. But yes, this is what I call a low intensity. We're going to move on to a high intensity light therapy tool, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's just itty bitty. How can that be higher intensity than something like this? So I'm waiting to see if someone has an answer for me on what Debby thinks the difference is between a high and a low intensity light therapy is. So this is one of the torches. This is the Pro model. These are really cool. I demonstrated this as well on the weekend. These come with 2 rechargeable lithium batteries. There's a little wall charger that you physically, it's a little bit fatter than a AA. So you put that in and charge it up. You're probably going to have at least 3 hours, in my opinion, depending on use, 2 to 3 hours per battery. So you should be charged to go for the day. This is a perfect example of a portable tool. So maybe you've got chronic inflammation, maybe somewhere in the ankle or in a knuckle in the hand. What's really nice about the torch and the high intensity tools is you can treat a very small area very quickly. Okay. Nobody's taking the bait on my question. What I consider a high intensity tool is something you're using for a short period. The diodes are stronger. You'll feel the heat much faster. And the maximum treatment time per area is about 5 minutes per day. The torch pinpoints a small area, the BioHeal larger. Pretty close, Deb. But the difference is the amount of time you spend treating yourself. So the torch is different. There's 3 different models in the torch. So this is the Pro. There's a silver one that it doesn't have the pulse feature. It's a little less expensive. And then there is also the BioHeal. I think that's the right name, but it's got a little extender with a little red tab. It's been launched as a cold sore tool, which it's really great for, but I've been using it like in my ear, or it's just another way that you can kind of pinpoint maybe you've got a spot or a growth that you've been targeting. So the high intensity tools are going to run max 5 minutes on auto setting. Does Debbie recommend that you start with the max setting on any device? Of course not. Just because your treadmill will go all day until you turn it off, do you keep going until you fall over? No. I would recommend with your high intensity tools like your torch, probably like 1, 2, maybe 3 minutes. I would rather see you do more frequent short sessions than one big long one, just as you're getting used to this. With the longer treatment times, the lower intensity panels, these are going to be longer treatment times. So 10, 15, most of them are pre-programmed for upwards of 30 minutes. The benefits are in a lot of ways the same. There are some similar benefits. Oh, hang on. I've got the infrared on here. I'm seeing. Similar benefits are, any light therapy is going to give you circulation, a boost of lymph. Red light is believed to boost mitochondria function. So it's going to make cells, whatever function they're doing, perform better. So it's going to help manage pain, reduce swelling, all that kind of stuff. And, sometimes you need to treat for less time, and sometimes you need to treat for longer periods. Longer periods are going to be things like weight loss, restless leg, muscle soreness, this is going to be where you're exposing larger body parts. So, again, there's never one perfect light therapy for every situation, but if you're managing MS symptoms, or you have symptoms similar to MS, this is sometimes why you run into why people have a couple of different devices. So, this would be an example of the perfect, well, this is what I use when I'm at home, or, I'm doing my big treatment, but throughout the course of the day, you don't need to suffer, so maybe the torch is something good that you can throw in your bag or your purse, or there's also the wand. There's a couple of different more portable tools that, maybe you spend 10, 12 hours a day working and you're not near your therapies at home. So there's lots of things that you can do to manage symptoms and reduce them throughout the course of the day, especially things like inflammation and swelling, so that when the end of your day does come, things aren't nearly as severe. They haven't built up all day. And, doing your therapies at home, or maybe you do want to do a workout, you're going to be in a better position to do it because you've managed some of that stuff that builds up during the day. So just my suggestion on the light therapy, if we look back at our symptoms, we know light therapy is good for so many things. I'm not going to get into the massive benefits, but certainly for the fatigue, just to give you some energy, the mood, there's all these lights that you can buy and spend stupid amounts of money on that sit beside you, it mimics the sun. Any benefit the sunlight gives us, and there's more benefit than harm, I absolutely assure you. The harm is associated with the UV. Everybody back in the 80s and 90s beating up all these poor tanning companies. The sun gives us a lot of benefit, and we've gotten so paranoid about spending time in it that, we're losing, vitamin D and a lot of these things that naturally we as animals receive from the sun. So red light therapy, infrared therapy, any of the visual lights, the ambers, the blues, extract certain spectrums out of the sun that give us those healthy, those good benefits, less the UV. So that's kind of the simplest scientific curve I can give you. There are lots of studies coming out about red light for eyes. We know about the benefits for improving sensation, for the numbing and the tingling, muscle spasms, soreness, weakness, mobility, all those things, pain. It really just depends on how you want to treat your symptoms. And light therapy is a really good option, especially if you're in a very progressive stage, lots of pain, and you need something in complement to your activities, or very, very important, if you find that your MS has progressed to the point where it's keeping you away and you're starting to digress in your activities, you really want to pay attention to that. The further you walk back down that hill, the further you're going to have to climb back up it. So if you're starting to notice things like muscle weakness and soreness, and you're just, I'm not going to work out today, find things that are going to manage the pain, even if it's just going for a walk or standing at your computer, weight bearing activities, keep those bones and those muscles strong. So use these as coping devices. They are the drug-free, non-invasive alternative. Okay, next selection. Massage. I have a few things all over the place. I did 3 big sessions this weekend on Life Pros products, but I'm going to condense my spiel on this one. I think most people know about massage. There's lots of different ways that you can massage. I've got a couple of examples here. My little baby and my other little baby. This is a massage roller. This is a massage gun. There's peanuts. There's back massagers. There's foot massagers. There's all kinds of different massagers out there. Not unlike the red light, I want you to again think about, what am I using this for? What am I trying to treat or manage? Where am I going to be using this realistically? And, be realistic with yourself. What am I actually going to use? Okay. So I have all kinds of things that I use from time to time, but these are the 2 that I probably use most regularly. So what I love about the massage gun, for those of you with MS that are dealing with grip strength, hand pain, lack of hand strength, numbness, things like that, even though you would never probably consider something like this because you're thinking, well, how could I even hang on to it? The number one side benefit or side effect that you get from using a massage gun is an improvement in hand and grip strength. Why? Because you're having to hang on to this thing while it's moving around. So even if you can't physically imagine hanging on and massaging your aches and your pains with this, progressive exercise, progressive strength building exercises is what your doctors and your therapists are talking about. So just by hanging on to the massage gun and getting used to how it feels, your hands, without realizing, are exercising there's tons of little muscles and ligaments in your hands and your wrists. And just by hanging on to this, if you hung on to this for 2 to 3 minutes, you can do both hands at the same time. I'll give you a little visual here. I guarantee within 3 to 5 days, you're going to notice an improvement either in sensation, grip strength. You're certainly going to notice a reduction in swelling and aches and pains, if that has been the case. Depending on the model of massage gun, which is another whole discussion for another day. But to me, it feels a little bit more intense right here. This handle on this older model is cushioned a little bit. But just by hanging on to the gun itself, forget the part where it's massaging, you're going to notice it's just like a little vibration that you'll notice some pins and needles or a little bit of itchiness if your fingers are cold or you get little white spots, maybe some Raynaud's. This is a really good, simple, no-brainer way to start improving hand grip strength. And if your hands are deteriorating, it doesn't matter what half these therapies are. You've got to use your hands to set them up and move them around. I want you to stay functional for a very, very long time. So this is an option I really want you to consider. It is a mechanical stimulation, so your muscles are forced to be moving. And you're going to find that the grip strength, hands down, is going to improve. And then once your hand strength improves, then you can use it to apply to the legs or, wherever you may be dealing with issues. The gun can be a good all-around tool. It's also a very good portable option if you want to take it with you throughout the course of the day. I've covered this a number of times, but for those of you who haven't seen me, when you're starting out with a massage gun, just like a vibration machine, we have this mentality of thinking we should start slow. So we start on the slowest speed or the lowest program. And unfortunately, the slowest setting you can almost see moving on camera, it's very choppy and very hammery. There's less movements. And you can see I'm just barely touching my skin and my hands kind of wobbling all over the place. Here's what I would suggest, especially if you're dealing with chronic pain. You'll learn over time, the more you use your gun, the more you kind of get used to its feel, how to hang on to it for you. There's different heads that come with it to contour and target different body parts. But just strictly on the speed, you see how it's moving a little faster now? So instead of pushing in for dear life, thinking that you're the masseuse and you got to beat it up, my massage therapist, this is my tip number 1 for you. Let the gun do the work. Crank it up in speed, even right up to top speed, and just let it skim the surface, so gentle that it's almost like you're doing a manual lymphatic massage. Your lymphatic vessels are located just below the surface of your skin. And if you're all swollen, guess what? You got some blockages or something going on there. Maybe you're missing some nodes and the lymph has pooled in that area. So sometimes pain isn't, nerve pain necessarily. Sometimes it's lymphatics are sluggy, or you've got toxic buildup there. So if you've got a massage gun, now that you've been hanging on to it for 3 to 5 days, because Debbie told you it will improve your grip strength, now you can start practicing on other body parts. And the best way to do it is to just learn how much your touch affects how the feel is on your body. If you've got a really sensitive area, I deal with a lot of lumps and bumps, not necessarily cancerous. If you've got a really sensitive area you can't touch, prep the area. So go around it really slowly and just get some circulation going in that area first. I always call it like a little bit of a cinnamon bun. And then, once you start feeling a little bit relaxed and loose, then, work your way into the center and work your way back out. For my massage therapists out there, where the trouble spots are. You can sit there for 20 minutes and work your hands to death till you get to it. Or you can incorporate a tool like a massage gun and get the tough stuff done. You know what I mean? The tough stuff. Like there's that layer 2 or 20 to get to before you get to the real problem. A massage gun and the roller, which I'll talk about next, these are great ways to kind of pre-prep your client, especially if they've got sensitivity issues. Sometimes people have personal space issues and they don't go for massages just because they have personal space issues. So a lot of people have success with a gun. And, if you've got a tight spot that you're so close to getting, but you got to keep going back and seeing, because this is a really good way to maybe get deeper faster in an appointment versus, having to spend a whole lot of time to get through the first few layers and your hands are done. And for you as a therapist, just by hanging on to the gun, it's kind of doing some recovery and some restoration. And you'll notice that your sensation, your strength, all of that's going to carry you longer throughout the course of the day. So that's idea number 1. And if you are a therapist, there's lots of different models. One thing to keep in mind with massage guns like vibration machines, amplitude is the distance that the shaft in that gun is moving with each movement. So a bigger amplitude is going to be a harder hit. A smaller amplitude is going to be more comfortable. A good general use is going to be anywhere in probably the 9 to 11 millimeters. Once you start getting some guns, I've got some that are 15, 14. And ironically, I got those because I got a lot of big rig workers in the family. And I thought, oh, my big dudes. No, they can't take it. No offense to my big dudes out there, but they can't take it. It's my moms. It's my chicks that are like, oh, yeah, go deeper. So it's a tolerance thing. So I've got a few different guns. My clients, like for me, I love to be black and blue. Like I don't go enough, but when I do, I want your elbow or your knuckles. I want you to get in there. I have really high tolerance. So I like the higher amplitude guns. For some of my seniors, for my kids, for my pets, I prefer a lower amplitude. It's also easier for me when I'm applying it because it's not as much of a punch. So just, sometimes you'll have a couple different ones based on tolerance, and then you can do one with each hand, so you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion, I always say. So now on to the next one. So MS symptoms, massage roller. This is a really lazy way to hit. You're going to have chronic areas, probably the calves, the thighs, the forearms. I don't know if you can see this visual, but I'm going to try. What I'm doing here, wait a minute. I don't know if you can see me just quite yet. Yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm just rolling it on my top of my thighs and my arms. Did I even charge this one up? Oh, I didn't charge it up. This one has a neoprene sleeve, and what this little USB charge does is it connects if you wanted a heat. This is a sleeve to offer heat. This, like the massage gun, has about 5 or 6 different settings. There's a couple different models out there, but you'll see the newest one on Life Pro's site. This is a good one. I like putting this under the back of my knees. I have the worst knees, always have. That's how I got into this. I use a roller on the vibration machine, but I'm not sure. I forgot to move my heater this morning. You could do something like this where you're just, sitting on the couch and you've got your knees sitting on the back of it. A lot of my ladies dealing with lipedema or lymphedema experience swelling, especially there's a little pocket that develops under the back of the knee. This is a really great way. There's not a lot of body weight going into it. Your legs are just draped over it. And what I do for my knee with the roller is I'm supposed to be doing exercises. We all are. I just do little lifts. So I lift and it puts a little more weight into it, and I stretch my calves, and then I relax, and then I lift and I point. If you've ever rolled, you can roll muscles using this one. This is a pretty solid unit. I wouldn't stand on it and do like jumping jacks or anything, but it's a really good way. I've got a really tight tendon this outer one is the one that always screws me up, and I'll just kind of get it on there and I'll lift my body weight up, and it hurts like an SOB, but you know what? It feels so much better afterwards. And if it hurts that bad, that just tells me I've left it too long to do this. But that's a really easy way. This is portable enough you could take it with you. There are other examples. This is another one that I like for the back of the knee. And this one's going here. So they're pretty quiet. I don't know if you can even hear that. Something like this, or the roller, the gun, if you don't have a lot of space at work, or you just want something a little extra to add while you're seated, even just having something like this, while you're sitting there on the computer, just, anything you can do to get the circulation and the lymph moving is going to help with the muscle stiffness. It's going to help with pain. It's going to help, just get your mind off your troubles. Sometimes healing and improving your situation, I think we improve when we feel like we're doing something. The hopelessness, and sometimes we talk ourselves out of things. Oh, I can't do it, just because we haven't in so long. Whereas, even though it might be a slow step, as long as you're stepping forward, it doesn't really matter how fast you're moving forward. You're moving in the right direction. So this may not seem like a game changer, but you'd be surprised how, for a lot of people out there, depending on your medical plan and what you're dealing with, you're dealing with things. Drugs cost money, therapies, going to see the doctor costs money. So, sometimes it's about managing your symptoms and, not suffering throughout your day until you can get to better care, or until other care is an option. But many of Life Pro's tools for so many of my clients have been a game changer, because they don't have the ability to necessarily access some of the treatments that they would like, or don't have a benefit plan that covers some of the surgeries they'd like to consider. So, instead of just popping pills all the time, there's lots of ways that you can manage it. Like I say, especially the pain, the sensitivity issues, in a passive way. I would love to, like I say, have everybody be active and doing more things, but what I started the session with was being realistic as well. Okay. If it's something that, just because I think it's the best thing to do, which is my next point that I'm getting to shortly, which is vibration machines. If it's not something that appeals to you, or personally don't think you're going to do it, pick something that you're going to stick with. I don't care what the therapy is. I just want to make sure you start getting some relief and start having a better life. This isn't a death sentence. Okay. And sometimes it's just the power of the mind. Okay. So vibration plates. I want to go back to my notes for just 2 seconds here. We talked a lot about symptoms today: fatigue, sensitivity issues, muscle spasm, stiffness. Again, we're dealing with a lot of universal symptoms that aren't necessarily specifically just a characteristic of MS. They are kind of universal symptoms. And as I've talked in past sessions, why would I recommend if you could only pick one of all the things I'm talking about today, and of course I'm biased because this is my preference, but it's a vibration plate. Why? Because it can give you therapeutic benefit, but it can also give you exercise gains. So the biggest trouble when you're dealing with progressive MS, and you've deteriorated to the point where you're in a lot of pain, you're very inactive, and you're spending too much time sitting, sometimes traditional activity, you've gotten to a point where it's just not possible to even go for a walk around the block. Forget the gym, forget the Pilates class. So where do you start? A vibration machine for a lot of my clinics, a lot of my medical clients, is something they're using to bridge the gap to return to activities that they miss. Maybe you like tennis, maybe you like skiing, maybe you like biking, maybe you like golfing. And it's frustrating, and it pisses you off when something enters your life and takes away your ability to do that as you did in the past. So take that energy and put it into some therapy. So with a vibration machine, you're going to get the blood flow, the lymph, you're going to improve the balance, you're going to deal with the sensation issues, you're going to get better mental clarity, and you're going to be happier, because that's what exercise does to us. But it's about where you are physically starting. So the beauty of a vibration plate, and I'm going to move to the screen and I'm going to come back for questions here in 2 seconds. I need to get rid of my shoes. Is you can start seated. So many of you who have seen my sessions in the past, I'm on the 4D Rumblex model today, the Plus. And, if you're in a situation where you're not, good at weight-bearing exercises, or maybe you're in a recovery or a surgery, injury situation where you're not to be doing weight-bearing activities, you can start in a stool. To be honest, I think the number one reason people start in a stool isn't because they're actually dealing with issues. I think it's fear. So if you're fearful at all, you're prone to falls, you've had a fall, or you're in a lot of pain, lacking energy, sometimes just fatigue itself. You're standing on this thing and you get tired and you spook yourself. Well, what if I fall off it? So a lot of it's the power of our own imagination that deters us from moving forward. So if you're fearful at all, you're dealing with a lot of pain, you just don't have a lot of energy, start seated in a stool. I want you sitting at a good 90-degree angle. Think functional. How many times a day do you need to go to the refrigerator or to the bathroom? Well, you're doing this. You're getting up and you're standing up. And that's a really good exercise if your balance is there to get started with. Perhaps you need a chair or put it by the edge of a counter. But just do functional things. I'd love to send you, like I say, back to the gym, but if you digress to the point where this is what you strength, okay? We got to work on some leg. The other thing is you're going to be prone, if you are spending a lot of time sitting, probably getting some swelling, some blockages, poor blood flow in the ankles. You might have some pulls developing. I did this exercise a couple of weeks ago, but one thing you want to work on is calf strength, helping that blood and that circulation return. It's also about just keeping you stable, even though they're the smaller muscles in our legs. They're at the bottom of the chain and they're carrying a lot of the weight. So what I want, when you're sitting, just as a variation, you can raise up on your toes and come back down. Your range of motion will improve if ankle flexibility and range of motion is there. And if you're dealing with lots of swelling, lots of tension, you tend to have trouble in squats or certain, getting down on the ground is difficult. Not because your back and your hips necessarily are inflexible, that's part of it, but it's actually lack of range of motion in your ankles. So, you just get some movement going in those areas. And if you're feeling stable, just a couple of reps of what I call a sit to stand is a phenomenal way to start building lower body strength and just making you more functional throughout the course of your day. Another add-on that you can do, a lot of you deal with neck tension, arm tension. If you are spending a lot of time seated, or you've progressed to the point perhaps where you're in a wheelchair, the upper body starts picking up a lot of the brunt of your daily tasks. So it needs some attention too, especially my ladies. We carry extra tension here just because we're women. It's where we carry our stress and our worry, our bra, our purse, our kids, all of that. So to get a little upper body movement, I want your feet when you're on the machine. I always do my sessions in oscillating movement, and I'm just on the slowest setting so you can see it on the camera, but I always want you guys starting at about a mid-speed range. It'll be smoother. It's going to be more comfortable, just like I mentioned at the guns. And don't be as wide as possible. Everybody thinks that the wider you go, the more benefit you get. Not true. The more impact you get. So we'll get there. Be functional to start if you're dealing with MS, and I want your feet no more than hip width apart. So adding the hands, locking up the legs, you're going to feel a little bit of movement in the neck and the shoulders just to give you an idea of what it feels like. If you want it more intense, then you can widen your feet up and you'll feel a change in how much shake is in the upper body. So I want you feeling it before you decide how much intensity you want. You want a little bit more action, come on down to the elbows. Okay, and you'll feel it's a little bit more direct. If you want more intensity, then widen up the feet. Decide, and you shouldn't be fighting or resisting this. Just relax. Let the machine get that lymph and circulation going. Maybe you can do some shoulder rolls or move the head. Whatever you would normally do sitting at your desk. Okay, just get some movement going. And again, that's for those of you that aren't comfortable standing necessarily, or you want to mix it up and do a bit of standing and a bit of sitting. But the sit to stand exercise is probably something that you're working with at your physical therapist's office, or something you're supposed to be doing at home. Doing it on a vibration machine, which is just an environment, makes it more effective, makes it kinder. And if you can get more activity on the muscles in less time, you're going to get more effect on your strength, your weight loss, whatever your goals are, but less time and impact on those joints, which is a lot of times, it's a stopping point for people. It's not that your muscles are exhausted or fatigued. The joint can't take any more action, okay? Another really good one with MS that I want you to consider, because we know we're supposed to be elevating our heart rate, but sometimes that can be scary too. I did this in a session the other day as well. I don't want you jumping with a whole lot of force, but a really good way to start getting just elevating your heart rate, which is going to do a number of things. It's going to raise your energy levels. It's going to help exercise the heart, if you will, improve circulation. But there's kind of a delicate balance. I don't want you going to the point of exhaustion. If you're just starting out with your vibration plate, or you're just starting out with activity and aerobic function, you want delicate balance. You want to make sure you still got some energy left. So if it's early in the day, we're going to start just doing some very light step ups. Okay. Again, no more than hip width apart. You're just walking. We don't walk with our feet wider than our hips. Okay. And we're just going to have a very moderate pace. I'd like to see you do this for about a minute or two. Ideally, if you've got joint pain and, something like this is not comfortable for you, part of the reason I like doing step ups is most of us with bad knees, or if you're dealing with chronic inflammation or swelling, stairs can be a real challenge. So this is my way of making you better at stairs by doing it on the machine. But if this is not your cup of tea, the best way to get some aerobic function or get lung function going on the machine is just to add a little bit of activity, a little bit of movement. So maybe we do some slightly dynamic squats. Let's assume that we have poor range of motion today. And let's move the arms out in front of us at the same time. So something like this, where we're just going down and back, down and back, just sort of getting ready to sit in a chair. I only want you working within your range of motion. I don't want you trying to do something you're not ready for. I can do this. I can go all the way down with my feet flat and remain in balance. If you can't do that on the floor, it's something you should start practicing. But most of us look more like this. We come down and we come up on our toes, because we lack that range of motion in the ankles that I talked about. So, after you've done about a minute of this, okay, you may notice that you can get a little lower. So I just want you to challenge yourself. And you don't have to move, but just see if you're, the more you can improve how deep you get into your squat, the easier getting up off the ground and out of that chair is going to be down the road. And another little trick while you're standing that I want you to practice as well, that improves the range on the ankle, is we're going to leave one foot on the machine. Maybe you'll see it better this way. So one foot remains in position. We're going to lock the other foot, the ball of the foot and the toes. We're going to lock that back leg, because the heel is not on the plate. That's the contact point. We're going to lock the leg, and we're just going to give that calf a nice stretch. And while we're doing that, we're working on the range in the front of the ankle. Okay, come back up. Doing this one leg at a time is going to help you feel more stable. Okay, got to do the other leg. And you'll find with your stretching, there's usually one side that has more range than the other. It's always the way. There's always one side that's stronger than the other as well. So good range of motion in those calves. You may want to do that first. And then I almost guarantee you're going to notice an improvement in how low you get in your squats. So, there's lots of different, probably 1,000 million different variations of squats out there. The goal, as I started speaking a little bit earlier, progressive strength training, aerobic function. If you're not exercising now, I simply wanted to show you it doesn't need to be a big old scary routine that's just going to scare you off. Just some slow functional movements, the sit to stand, perhaps some step ups, perhaps some squats dynamically, just something to get the heart going a little bit. Once you feel a little bit elevated, probably 3 to 5 minutes total, just like I talked about with the guns and the lights. It's not about going 10 minutes right off the bat just because your machine is preset that way. You're starting back to an activity and you're dealing with a condition that the number one symptom that presents itself is fatigue. So we just want to make sure that you have some to get through the rest of your day. If you're doing a workout later in the day, it might be okay to feel fatigued. The one thing that I haven't mentioned today would fall more under the light therapies is infrared saunas. LifePro has gotten very into infrared saunas, and they're also a very good way to not only treat muscle soreness and pain, but if you are looking to accelerate weight and you find that activity on its own is challenging and you're getting frustrated, just not seeing the results, that's a really good complement to consider incorporating some infrared therapy to not only for the elevating the heart rate piece, which I don't want to say it replaces cardio, but it is a bit of a cardio cheat. But it's more of a complement than only a standalone. But it's a really good way to, at the same time, get the circulation, the lymph going, force you to relax. Awesome on detoxification. That's another really important factor. So again, there's never any one tool. Sometimes the best harmony is combining a few of these and just mixing up maybe the routine that you have been doing. If you're using any of LifePro's products now, sometimes you'll notice whether it's the light therapies or the vibe, or the massage, you're still getting relief, but the results or the progression has kind of plateaued. Our body gets used to anything over time. So, if you've ever taken a workout class, things progress into different things every week to week for a reason. Want to make sure that your body's not getting too used to any one thing. You get into a point where you're just maintaining your position versus improving or changing it. So if you don't need to change up your exercises or your techniques necessarily, but a lot of the devices that LifePro offers just has different settings, so change up the settings from time to time, or the time of day that you're doing it, or, incorporate your tools in other ways. Mixing things up is probably the easiest way to just keep the results going. And the body has to kind of change gears and adapt and improve through that process. So it is MS Awareness Week. There's all kinds of things going on around the US and Canada, lots of events. If you have someone that is dealing with MS, and want to share some of this information, I'm here live every Monday, usually medically related. Today was MS Day, and I know there's some, as I said, there's a really good blog article out today, and I've linked a couple of others in the event if you're just looking for some more information. If anyone's watching this on a recorded basis after the fact and has a question for me, tag me at Debby with a Y, and I will absolutely get back to you once I see that. Everyone that is here today, I hope I've given you a few ideas. There's lots of ways that you can improve your situation. You do not need to suffer. But sometimes we just don't understand, or we think we need permission, or I had a lot of questions this weekend in my seminar about, do I need to check with my doctor before I use this? We responsibly recommend, I do, and I know that LifePro does, if you're dealing with a medical condition and you're looking at changing any element of your care, whether it's a pill or a therapy, you should make sure that, the underlying, there's no reason that you shouldn't. But in my experience, in like a decade and a half dealing with all of these devices, it's pretty rare that your doctor doesn't support, whether they understand them completely. A lot of times I want to put this on you. You've got to research and you've got to do your own homework. You've got to take care and charge of your care. I couldn't imagine being a doctor trying to stay versed on everything, and you go in with your red light wand that Debbie was talking about. And what do you mean you don't know about it? So they've got a lot to understand in the medical world, let alone the alternatives, which are not always promoted as they should be because they're alternatives. So you got to do your own homework. But as I said, there's lots of help out there. There's thousands of people in the VIP group that are using these therapies, whether they have a diagnosis or not, that weren't waiting for help, and they're living better lives because of that. So if you're dealing with MS or any of the symptoms I've actually talked about today, doesn't matter if MS is the reason you have them, I would love to hear any tips that you may have. Or if you try some of the ones I've done today, come on back and let me know how that's worked out for you. So keep seeking answers. Solutions are out there, and there's lots of people like me out there that can bridge the gap. And I'm not a doctor. I don't diagnose. I don't treat, but I do have a tremendous amount of experience with folks like you that are living better lives because you have embraced some of the technologies out there. So thank you for taking control of your health and living a better life because of it. Thank you very much for joining me. Next week, I will be here again at 3 p.m. Eastern time. I think it's like the first day of spring and the International Day of Happiness or something. So we're going to talk about that next Monday. Thank you, Kim. And yes, thank you for joining me. Donna as well was here. And I think there was somebody else who joined me. Again, sorry if Debbie was here. How could I forget that name? Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I hope you have a great start to your week. Don't work too hard. And I look forward to seeing you same time, same place, hopefully with less technical issues next time. Thanks again, guys. Don't work too hard.